Amateur presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, we're going to be talking about a film that when we saw it, we were coming back from a trip in LA. We were a little bit loopy at that point. So maybe that plays into
Belly full of Sunset Grill.
our feelings towards the movie. Maybe it works for it because I mean part of this, animated magical realism sort of kid-friendly fantasy movie that is scored and co-written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which we've talked a lot about recently with Tick Tick Boom and just in general because he's everywhere, especially when it comes to music specifically in films and kids movies. So that is going to be a factor in sort of this Colombian centric story that is also very much a classic Disney musical.
Yep. Directed by Byron Howard and Jared Bush, starring Stephanie Beatriz, John Leguizamo, Wilder Valderrama is in there, Diane Guerrero, María, Cecilia, Botero, and more. Yes, Eric, we returned from Los Angeles and went straight to the movie after getting Sunset Grill, like I mentioned. Yeah, and I think I tweeted out after this when the embargo came up and being like, guys, I think Encanto is totally fine, but I'm a little Lin-Manuel Miranda out. And I took that back immediately after watching Tick Tick Boom. And I don't even mean that as like this movie isn't enjoyable and a solid Disney, kids movie, because I think it's gorgeously animated. I think having it take place in Colombia and the representation that, Disney is just starting to kind of do in their movies, which I think is a great start, showing different cultures and different, people. And, it's not just your typical, Disney princesses or classic Disney story. Like, I think the representation there that they're starting to put into their movies is fantastic. When it comes to the music, that's when I said I was getting a little Lin-Manuel Miranda out. And the other thing, it was in the wrong aspect ratio for like 25 minutes of the movie, which we won't hold against the movie because it's not its fault, really. It was unfortunately where we saw the movie. I ran out about like 25 minutes in. I'm going, something seems off here. And I'm pretty sure the framing looks like the blocking is like, there's no way that they would be cutting off the top of their heads like that. And I had to run out and be like, I think you got it in, the wrong aspect ratio. And they did fix it. But getting back to the music, what I meant by that, because like Eric mentioned, is like Lin-Manuel Miranda since Hamilton, obviously skyrocketed and then was getting snatched up a lot by Disney and other people. I mean, he had Vivo earlier this year. He helped out with the music in Moana. He was in Mary Poppins Returns. He has In the Heights this year. He had, mind you, it's his musical. He and has a small role in it, but
he's working on The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid right now. And then now he has Encanto, which he did all the music for. And I think he's a very talented dude. You can hear me rave about his direction and what he did with Tick Tick Boom. I felt like in this movie, a little too Hamilton-y for me. And like I started to, in listening to it again today, I'm like, I just feel like after Hamilton and, he did In the Heights before that people were hiring him for that sound, and there's nothing wrong with that. And, but I feel like after so much, and we just got Vivo a couple months ago, which also had this very similar sound, that it all started to kind of blend together. And like, even from the opening song, The Family Madrigal, I just was like totally disengaged from it. And I just felt like you could hear the inflections that you've heard in a lot of his other music and the kind of pacing and the way that people perform it, that it just kind of deludes me pretty quickly. And again, while I think it is a colorful, beautiful, fun at times, movie that I think most young kids will probably enjoy because of all those reasons. And the musical numbers are, vibrant and, loud, and I think it'll keep their attention. But I don't know. I think it just lost me on the musical side of things. And then when it comes to plot, um, there wasn't a whole lot there. Like, it's just kind of standard kind of Disney stuff. So ultimately, I thought it was okay, but I felt a little bit apathetic, leaving the movie and even thinking about it since.
Yeah, I'm basically in the same sort of mindset as you are, where watching it, I thought it was completely enjoyable for what it is. I like the design of the house
Yeah,
specifically, and I like that it kind of is literally a character in the film. But they don't anthropomorphize it completely, where like it doesn't become like a talking character. It's just more
sure.
so how it moves and kind of is there. But also, I like the idea of how we see family from different perspectives within this unit, where some talk about others in a certain way, and then others see themselves in a certain manner. And the John Leguizamo character I really liked quite a bit, Bruno, and I just like John Leguizamo, and I just always like
Same.
hearing or seeing him. And I think his character is one of the more interesting ones in the supporting cast, and kind of being um the black sheep of the
The
family, so to
Outcast,
speak,
yeah.
and the outcast. And I kind of like where that goes. I think the lead character is your classic kind of Disney protagonist, where they're taking up the mantle to do something in order to help the family, but also the community as a whole, while also kind of you know coming to terms with who they are, whether or not they have powers or not. And I think that's also kind of your very typical Disney hero
Message kind of,
storyline.
yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of accepting of who you are and where you come from, and that there's
Doesn't
nothing
matter
wrong
if
with
you're
you.
different. Yeah,
Yeah, even
exactly.
within your own family. And there's an interesting dynamic there between the lead and sort of the matriarch of the family, although I did find at times that the matriarch was maybe a little bit too cruel to the daughter for or the granddaughter for a Disney movie. Like, it almost felt like it was kind of like she was portrayed as almost like the villain of the piece in a
She
way.
kind of has to be the antagonist. Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of felt like it was a little too much for somebody that is also a caring grandmother. Like, it almost felt like, okay, well, you're doing this to serve like some conflict and tension within the household, but at the same time it doesn't feel like a grandmother would necessarily treat somebody like that. But again, you have to kind of consider where the matriarch is coming from, that she is somebody that is basically trying to keep the family legacy alive, and the memories of her ancestors and her husband, and the history um behind it all intact. And so there's this kind of moment of where, like, are they going to lose that? And I think that that is interesting, but also, like, again, like, it is kind of harsh for a kids movie to see a grandparent treat their grandkids so cruelly at times. And I think that that maybe is a strike against it in some ways. And to your point, I kind of wish that Lin Manuel Miranda would adapt more to different styles of music than necessarily bringing just his kind of rhythm and sort of the spoken kind of hip hop that he does. And yeah, it's
Hmm.
like you want that sound, but I'd like to see him kind of be able to incorporate more of the Disney aspects into
Yeah.
a movie like this. But yeah, like, in terms of like the songs, none of them really stuck out the way that like a lot of these other Disney animation movies do. Because like, you look at like Frozen, like those two Frozen movies, they do have, like, even though if you don't like the movie, or Olaf is a character that you kind of find a little bit um repellent at times, like, at least there are songs in there that you can take away from. Or Zootopia has a really strong message of also about diversity and
Sure. Yeah.
segregation and things like that. This kind of just feels like a middle of the road, fairly well made animated film that is kind of celebrating Latin history and Colombian history, but like not doing maybe enough, but just the bare minimum. And like it kind of it's I'm kind of mixed on it. Like it's one of those movies where it's like I'm gonna give it a pass. It's perfectly fine,
Same. Yeah.
but I'm also not like having watched the movie a couple weeks ago. It kind of feels like it was years ago since I watched it. Like there's nothing really that stays with you.
Yeah, I absolutely and totally agree with that. And I feel like, going back to even Moana, with which Lin-Manuel Miranda helped with the music there, like I feel like there are elements in Moana that have even transcended it just being, another Disney animated movie, where it has become iconic with, whether You're Welcome or another, certain songs from that, where I even listening to it again, going back to it today, where I can't pick out one thing, like even from the start. Like I just don't even think that opening song, which is a lot of kind of setup and exposition of who the family are and what their powers are, and things like that. I mean, you have Surface Pressure. I have the song listing. I couldn't even remember it, but like, which is kind of more in that, it's one of the sisters, and it's in that more kind of rap musical style kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know, man, it's totally fine, and I think it's totally worth taking your kids to go see, like if you're a parent. And it is it's a Disney movie. They rarely whiff. At worst, they're just like, oh, that was mildly enjoyable. And I think this just kind of falls in that camp, where like, I'm glad I saw it. I have no real desire to watch it again. That's totally okay. And I was Lin-Manuel out, and now I'm like back on the Lin-Manuel train with Tick Tick Boom. So like, I'm with you, where he has it in him. And you can tell like in his other work that even in Hamilton, not every song sounds the same, but I get what you're saying with the rhythm, because I feel like this is a blend of like the stuff from In the Heights and Hamilton and Vivo, and it feels like a mix of all those kind of styles, and just taking the heaviest hits out of that and kind of adapting them into that Disney kind of mold. And I guess that kind of works, but it doesn't feel super inspired when it's musically.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the biggest disappointment. But again, we usually get what was the last, I guess Ryan the Last Dragon was the last one, which I can't believe was this year. Does that
Yeah.
feel like it was this year? Because it doesn't to me.
It feels so long ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, like when you're in like what, March, April,
Yeah.
that does feel like a distant memory. We should also mention that Stephanie Beatriz,
Beatrice, yeah.
who is that's probably best known as Rosa in Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Also in the Heights.
who's in the Heights. I like her
Yeah.
a lot as well, and like
I think she does a good job.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's a very likable, energetic, optimistic protagonist, and that's kind of again fitting for the Disney hero. And
Completely opposite of Rosa, both in sound and
well, that's
outlook.
the thing that's
Yeah.
amazing about that. I mean, that's just good acting, where like
Yeah.
you see her in like do like interviews or other roles, and
It's
she's
completely different than Rosa.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so strange because Rosa is such a definitive character for her, and that role specifically is such a standout on that show. And it's like night and day, and it is kind of funny just thinking about like the personality in terms of what you can sort of achieve when you're acting, and like
Absolutely.
it's
I think a
yeah.
lot of people won't even realize that it's her, right?
No.
Until you look at the credits after and go, "Oh my god, it's Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, wow, good for her." Yeah, I think she does a good job. I don't think anyone in the movie is, you know, I agree with you. I love John Leguizamo as well, and I think the whole cast does a good job. It's just it doesn't have that, iconic Disney-ness, and I hate even saying that, but like, and I don't think they've really had that, like, when it comes to the animated stuff for a little while, right? Like, um, Even Moana, I'm kind of soft on, but
I like Moana
um,
a lot more than this. I think Moana
so do I. But I'm still don't love Moana.
for everything that's kind of, again, maybe cliched or typical within the tropes of a Disney animated movie. I think there are certain songs and images in Moana that stand out a little bit more than in this movie. And
I,
this kind of
absolutely,
this
yeah.
feels mid-tier, and it's one of those films that's like, okay, if you don't take your kids to the theater to see this and wait until Disney Plus, you're not
You're
going to
not,
lose
yeah.
anything watching it at home.
I think you could do either.
Yeah.
And I think you'll be totally fine. Like, it's weird to me, like, to get into how Disney decides on what movies go where. And I get we're at that part of the after, not after the pandemic, we're still in it, but like most things are going back to theaters. But like relegating some of the Pixar stuff to Disney Plus, but Encanto, which I guess Raya was the Disney Plus Premier Access, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just because theaters are open now, which is why Encanto goes this route. But yeah, I think it's sorry, excuse me. I'm gonna give it a 3. I don't know if I already said that, but I don't think we rated it yet. But I'm gonna give it a 3.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay.
I'm also going to give it a 3.
Yeah. um,
Perfectly fine.
yeah, it's
It's
totally
well
fine.
made. It's well acted voice wise. It's just a film that doesn't really have anything like that stands out per se in any
Yep.
real way.
Yep. Totally agree. Thank you all for listening or watching. We really, really do appreciate it. Oh my god. I'm dying. Sorry everyone. If you like this, we have tons of other reviews that you guys can check out right now. Our 300th episode of Untitled Movie Reviews is up. It's Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. We would love for you guys to go check that out. As well as we have reviews up for Ghostbusters, King Richard, Tick Tick Boom if you want some more Lin-Manuel. We also reviewed something else today, Eric. What am I missing? House of Gucci.
Yes. That classic.
Yes. And much more. So and if you want a spoiler cast of Resident Evil, not Resident Evil, Ghostbusters Afterlife, go check out Untitled Movie Conversations. It's getting late, and
But we did talk spoilers about the video game on the 300th episode with Resident
tail
Evil
end.
Welcome to Raccoon City, and specifically
Yeah.
where we could see the series going if it continues with this rebooted franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Head over to our Letterboxd, which is Untitled_movies, which is probably your best spot, one-stop shop to find everything that we do. So head over there. Thank you all for listening or watching. As always, my name is Matt Rohrbeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews at rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
It's back to the well for Lin-Manuel Miranda.